join me by way of standing as we begin the service tonight? Oh, it is wonderful to be a Christian. Those are some true words. Think about the words as we sing it tonight. A life has purpose. Ready? A life has purpose now it never had before. There is meaning to each day and even more. For a joy and peace I can't explain is mine. Since I found new life in Christ my Lord divine. Oh, it is wonderful to be a Christian. Oh, it is wonderful to be God's child. Oh, it is wonderful to have your sins forgiven. Oh, it is wonderful to be redeemed, justified, forever reconciled. On that last, and the hope of heaven's glories thrill me so. There I'll live with Christ forevermore, I know. That is why the things of earth I loosely hold. Time eternal rich is better more than gold. Oh, it is wonderful to be a Christian. Oh, it is wonderful to be God's child. Oh, it is wonderful to have your sins forgiven. Oh, it is wonderful to be redeemed, justified, forever reconciled.
Show me on your face that it's wonderful. Show me, smile, happy, raise your hand. Demi's happy about it. There we go. Demi's the happiest Christian we have in our church. She borders on being charismatic, but it's all right. But she loves Jesus, amen? And I love that. I love Jesus tonight. How about you? And it is wonderful to be a Christian. And that's been your theme song, right? And next up, wasn't that great to hear those teenagers sing that a couple of Wednesday nights ago? Oh, that our teenagers would fall in love with Jesus and know that it's wonderful to be God's child. I'm very glad you're here tonight. We're going to focus on missions a little bit tonight. I have a Bible study ready for you tonight to kind of get us prepared and ready and thinking about our own missionary family. And then, of course, the missionaries that are coming here in just a few days. And in fact, next Wednesday night, don't come. It's the only time all year you hear me say, don't come to church on Wednesday night. Well, I guess it's 2 times a year. We do it at Thanksgiving as well, don't we? But no Wednesday night service next week, but we start on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I hope you're making preparations there for that. Well, let's ask God's blessing on this service tonight. Would you bow with me, please? Lord, I sure love you. I sure thank you for this place to be in the middle of the week. Lord, I'm glad that our doors are open, our lights are on, and there's a buzz, and people are happy about serving Jesus. I want to thank you for what happened early on tonight with the children and the practicing. And Lord, oh, Mrs. Engler does such a great job. She has so many great ideas. Lord, preparing a program for Veterans Day and teaching our children to honor those who have fought for our liberty and freedom. Thank you that we can be patriotic Americans tonight. Thank you for freedom that we have to meet this evening. Lord, I want to thank you for those 70 workers that met early tonight over in B400. What a great meeting, what a great challenge. And Lord, just being together as the workforce of Shenandoah Bible Baptist Church. And God, I pray you'd help us to be happy in our work. Lord, not to let it be a burden, not to let it be something we have to do, but rather we get to do. And Lord, I pray that tonight, because of our coming, that it won't be something that was a duty, that it was something we've looked forward to maybe all day today, having to work out in the world and then come together with your people. May it be refreshing this evening from the first song that we just sang. It is wonderful to be a Christian. So Lord, help us tonight. Maybe some have had a bad day. Lord, maybe some have had some burdens or struggles they've maybe carried into the service tonight. May they cast those burdens on you. May you take those from us, and may tonight we be ready to hear from you. Bless every element of the service. We ask you to do it in Jesus' name. Amen. Please be seated tonight. So thankful again that you're here, and appreciate many of you that brought your kids early so that Mrs. Engler could have that practice time. And did anybody get to come in and kind of watch the practice? You got a little matinee maybe there. And well, aren't those kids so cute and doing such a great job teaching them to be patriotic Americans? And I sure thank God for that. Well, Brother Harris is going to come give us a few announcements here tonight. And then I'm going to step up and give you a couple things about missions conference that are very important as well. Brother Harris, you start.
All right, please don't forget, we do have our Sunday School and Adult Bible Fellowship this Sunday at 9:45 a.m. We also have our Sunday services at 10:45 and also at 6 o'clock. And then just to let you know, there won't be a church-wide prayer meeting this Sunday at 5. That is not going to be taking place. So just want to let you know about that. And then also, please remember to be faithful to your giving so that SBBC can maintain financial integrity. You can give online. Drop your envelope in the locked box at each entrance, and thank you for doing that. And then this does have to do with missions conference, but if you would like to host a missionary family for lunch after the service on Sunday, October the 31st, please go by the Welcome Center to sign up. Now that I have this, tells me that there are still some spots open that need to be filled.
We have 3.
Okay, so 3 spots that need to be filled. And I'm just going to make a little bit of a plug for this. This is your opportunity. We could take them out as staff. Holly's waving her hand. There you go.
Okay.
Done.
That happened tonight then?
Did
Okay,
you see
all
how good I am? Did you see that? Like all I said was something and just like that, done. All right, pride goeth before destruction, the haughty spirit before a fall. My mother made me memorize that. All right, ladies, you may still, how about if we do this ahead of time? Is the missionary ladies taken care for, Miss Holly? Okay, so you can still sign up for one of the groups of ladies that's going to host a missionary wife, and that's Saturday, October the 30th. So that's still there for the spectacular. That sounds more like, like Count Dracula or something. Spectacular. Anyhow, so if you want to see Miss Holly Stanley, and there's still a sign-up sheet out there for that, Miss Holly. Okay, so if you would do that, please. And then also the safety team will be holding a team meeting and family potluck in the gymnasium on Friday, November the 5th at 6 o'clock. That's November the 5th at 6 o'clock. During this meeting, we'll be reviewing our 21-22 safety plan. Please plan to attend, bring your family, enjoy team and family fellowship as we prepare our new year of ministry. Team members are encouraged to stop by the safety office prior to the meeting to pick up their copy of the 21-22 safety plan, and you need to sign up to bring a dish, and you need to sign up. There's a sign-up sheet located in the safety office. So if you're going to that, you need to bring food, and you need to sign up for that if you would please. And then also, I wanted to make another push here for you, if you would please, on CDL training. And Brother Sittinger is doing this for us. He's right back here in the back, and it's vitally important. If you have ever thought about getting your CDL, and this is for driving for the church. We're not offering this for you to get a job somewhere. This is for you driving here, buses for the church. Hey, if you use it to drive someplace else, but you drive for the church, we're okay with that too. But listen, we need drivers, and Brother Sittinger has been doing this at the church he came from for many years. He's doing that for us now, and you have a very short window before you're going to have to go through more training to get your CDL. And so he can get you in, he can get you going. He's working with Brother Hart down in Beckley, West Virginia. They're working together on this thing, and if you'll do this before the end of the year, it'll be very simple for you to do it, and Brother Sittinger will help you to get that. Now, after the first of the year, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but we're still going to be able to offer that training here at our church for you. We'll still be able to get you through. It's just going to take longer for you to get that, and it's going to be more involved for you to get that. So I'm asking you, if you've thought about getting your CDL, would you please go talk to Brother Sittinger so that he can get you started right now and get that done and cared for. Also, all bus workers, and we've not been getting the word out on this like we should, but all bus workers, next Sunday, this coming Sunday, that's this Sunday morning at 7:30 is our bus meeting and our bus breakfast in the bus garage. We're doing that because of missions conference. Usually it's always the last Sunday of the month, but we don't want anything to interfere with missions conference. We've moved it back 1 week. It is this Sunday, the 24th, and it is potluck. So you need to bring something with you for that. Brother Ben Stanley, I won't be here, but Brother Ben Stanley is going to be running that. You will not want to miss that meeting. It's going to be an awesome meeting that day, and it's at 7:30 this coming Sunday. Is there anything in particular that you want them to bring, Brother Ben? Like favorite meals, favorite dishes? Because like you can see tonight, I could just go like this and it can happen.
The one thing we don't have, though, Mrs. Stanley, are the gift cards for missions conference. We got the sign-up sheet that you said you're bringing them, but only about half of them have actually come in, okay? So if you haven't yet purchased that, let's just kind of do a little poll here. How many of you have already signed up to bring it, and you've already done your due diligence to turn it in? Let me see your hand. All right, my hand is up. All right. How many of you signed up, but you have not yet brought it in? Can I see, just so you kind of know who we're talking about? So please, please, please get those purchased just as soon as possible. We need them by Sunday, right, Mrs. Stanley? So we know we have them in hand. And we have, I'm going to put you on the spot, Holly. Each family should get about how much money in gift cards? About $600 worth of various gift cards. And that's from little Dunkin' Donuts cards to Visa gift cards to gas cards, $600 per family. That's $3,000, right? Is that right? 6 times, that's $3,600, right? Can you do math? I can't do math. Sorry, I don't teach math at Martinsburg Christian Academy. But that's $3,600 that you have given just so we can be good to our missionaries. That's in addition to love offerings we're going to give them and meals that we're going to provide for them and gifts throughout the conference. Look, we treat God's people really well during a conference, and I think it should be that way. Amen? And it's your generosity that allows us to do that through mission. So gift cards is the one last thing I think we're outstanding. And then the Saturday breakfast. We do need you signing up for that as well so we know how many to plan on for Saturday. All right, let's sing one more time. Please, let's all stand. Now I belong to Jesus.
Great song. We'll sing the first and last. Jesus, my Lord, will love me forever. Ready on that verse? Jesus, my Lord, will love me forever. From him no power of evil can sever. He gave his life to ransom my soul. Now I belong to him. Now I belong to Jesus. Jesus belongs to me. Not for the years of time alone, but for eternity. On that last, joy floods my soul, for Jesus has saved me, freed me from sin that long had enslaved me. His precious blood he gave to redeem. Now I belong to him. Now I belong to Jesus. Jesus belongs to me. Not for the years of time alone, but for eternity.
You may be seated. Ushers, do you have cross talks? Let's go ahead and make sure that everybody gets one. Lift a hand if you need a gold. Boy, this is a new color tonight. After 3 weeks, it's not white any longer with color on the back, right? It looks like this tonight. So keep your hand up, please. And our ushers are serving you. And this is awesome. On the back side, I don't know if Brother Harris is going to talk about this, but all the missionaries coming to the conference are on the back side here. So be praying about each of these men and their wives, and talks about what fields that they are representing. Everybody is from a Hispanic country, and it's going to be wonderful. All right, so Brother Harris, what's coming to talk about a prayer request?
All right, so get your crosstalk out there and turn to page 1. As you're getting to that, I just wanted to say this. For all of you who have been taking and putting the gifts on the chairs here for the pastors, sometimes it's difficult to get thank you cards to everybody, but you don't realize how much that means to us as staff. And I wanted to personally say thank you. If you've been a part of that and you've been helping out with that, that means so much to us. And I know, we oftentimes, we're up here in the front, we get a lot of recognition and stuff that way, but just to have the cards, I just have loved the cards and all the little thoughts and the notes in it and all the little goodies and everything like that. And so I just wanted to say, if I don't get a card to you or we don't get a card to you, thank you so much. Thank you for what you're doing. I love you guys so much. And I appreciate you, and you're awesome. You're absolutely awesome. So if you look there at the front side of your crosstalk, and the first thing I always want to draw your attention to is to pastor and family. And first there on the list is, of course, Pastor and Mrs. Bain. And of course, we all know that Pastor Bain is going to be traveling, leaving tomorrow morning. And I always hesitate that because we're on Facebook. He's not leaving till next Thursday, and there's an alarm on the door, and Roscoe is in the back room waiting for you to come. But would you please pray for him as he travels, and then also for what the Lord will do through that conference. And I know Brother Woolard, and I love him. You know, he comes once a year. He's got such a sweet spirit, such a nice man. And I don't know about Frank, but how in the world he had such a nice brother, it doesn't make sense. But nonetheless, would you pray about that conference as well, please? And then pray for Preacher, and then all of these things that are listed there as well as Mrs. Bain, and then Joe and Carmen, and then also little Joe, and also Matthew and Caitlin as well. So please keep them all in your prayers. And then on the inside, if you would please, I want you just to add a name. I'm not going to highlight a lot. I don't want to spend a lot of time because I know Preacher needs as much time tonight as he can for what he's going to be doing this evening. So I don't want to go through a lot of stuff here, but I want you to add a name on there. Her name is Mary Lung. And I'm not sure, I don't think we have her listed anywhere else on there. This is Sylvia Butts' sister. And I was down with her in the hospital on Sunday afternoon. I got a chance to read some scriptures and pray with her. They put her into hospice on Monday morning, and she's not expected to make it. I know Sylvia is going to try to get in to see her. And so would you pray? She's saved. She's going to just graduate right into heaven, but it's very hard for Sylvia as well. That's her sister. So if you would please, I remember Sylvia, she goes through this, also Mary Lung, for her comfort and for God to be with her as she goes through the valley of the shadow of death. And then I also want to just draw your attention just very quickly to the college students. Please don't just go through this because we put these on there the same every single time. Please don't forget all of these things are listed, but think of our college students right now. They're 2 months in. They've been away from home now for a couple of months, and so would you keep them in your prayers? And then also our military. And as you know right now, of course, in every aspect of our country where everybody's having difficulties, but especially the military. And they need our prayers, not just for those on the foreign fields, but those who are on the foreign field now called the United States. And they need our prayers as well, if you would please. And then I know Preacher is going to be talking about the missionaries this evening there, but I do want to draw your attention all the way down on the far side to Stamper, if you would look there, and he'll mention that here in just a moment. You'll notice that we've changed that. So I just want to draw your attention to that. Preacher will talk about that here in just a moment, and I'll let him take care of that. And then if you would look onto the back side there, we have done our USA pastor for condolences to the Vinton Williams. He was the pastor of Trinity Baptist Church in Warrenton, Virginia. He is, but the passing of his wife, Jean. And so this is friends with Mrs. Stanley, and she's asked for us to pray for that dear family and Pastor Williams there as well. So if you would please keep them in your prayers. And then as Pastor Bain mentioned there, I do want to mention the missions conference. And I'd ask that you pray for each one of these as they're traveling, but also that God would help them and encourage their hearts as they come. And I was on deputation for a period of time. I know what it's like, especially if these who've not ever been to this church before, they don't know what to expect either. They're a little nervous. They're a little uncertain of what to expect. And I'm sure they're a little bit excited as well. And in every missions conference, every church I went to as a missionary, God worked on my heart. And so would you pray for God to work on their hearts through this conference as well? And we have all of their names listed on there, as Pastor Bain said. So if you would please keep them, and then also the conference in your prayers.
And thank you, Brother Harris. I appreciate that. Well, I'm going to get into, we're not going to really get into what we would consider a Bible study this evening. But I do have a presentation that I want to give to you that will, I believe, get our church ready for missions conference. And if you want to just kind of follow along on the screen here, and let me get my notes all out. This has been a habit of mine for many, many years, a week or two out from the conference to just really start getting our attention on where it needs to be. And let me just ask this. Let me take a quick poll here because I know we have so many new folks. How many of you are new to our church since last October? You were not coming last missions conference, but you are here now. Would you just lift your hand? Would you look around and see how many new people, even on a Wednesday night? And all right, thank you very much for that. How many of you, though, however, that just raised your hands, maybe in a former church, you are used to a missions conference or know what a missions conference is? Let me see your hand there. All right, there we go. And most folks that come from good churches like ours typically do have these types of conferences, but not every church does. And it may surprise some of you for me to tell you this. Even Dr. Hiles, the great First Baptist Church in Hammond, Indiana. And all of those 40 years that Brother Hiles was there was never a missions conference. He never did Faith Promise Missions. Faith Promise Missions was not something I learned in Bible college. Actually, I did not learn it until I went to my first ministry in Indiana. And Pastor King had a great missions heart. And really, Mrs Bain and I, that's where we learned how to put a conference on, how to treat missionaries well. And so my point, I guess, is not every church has what we would consider to be a conference. And some churches do it different. There's some churches, they do what they call a missions emphasis month. And maybe every Sunday of that month, they'll have maybe 4 different missionaries in. You know, first Sunday of the month, one missionary going to, Ecuador, and one missionary the next week going somewhere else. There's no bad way to focus on missions, obviously. But it has been profitable for me and my ministries for us to have a concentrated effort. Multiple days strung together. That's what we call a conference, all right? I'm going to go preach at a marriage conference, all right? Tomorrow I'm going to drive 9 hours, and I'm going to get to the hotel. I'm going to change clothes real quick, go to supper with the preacher, and go teach my first session. If I've got 2 sessions tomorrow night, so Thursday and Friday and Saturday, it's going to be a concentrated effort about marriage, all right? We call that a conference, a retreat. So the point, I guess, is that I feel it's good that we have multiple days where we have multiple missionaries. All right, now, do we sometimes have missionaries come in just on a Sunday night and he just is traveling through, maybe on deputation or furlough? Those are 2 words that maybe new Christians may not even know what that is, but these are the methods or means by which they raise their support so that they can go to the foreign field. So they may just come on a one night, and they're here, they set up a table, they preach in the evening service, they fellowship a little bit, and they're on to the next meeting. It's hard to get to know missionaries when it's just one service. But watch, you and I have an opportunity next week, 4 days, to have 6 families here. And we're going to have them as a captive audience. Can we say that? They're going to be ours for 4 days. Their tables are going to be set up in the foyer. They're going to have their displays there and their prayer cards and little trinkets maybe from their field. And may I encourage you to take your kids and let them meet the missionaries. Look, make a big deal about God's men that go to the foreign field. They are not second-class preachers. They are first-class servants of God. Absolutely. And so I want us to treat them right, okay? And so I want to spend a little time tonight in getting you ready, obviously, for the conference. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But tonight I want to, in the first part of this, I want to talk a little bit about our own family, meaning our missions family, the folks that we have committed to support. We have 96 missionaries right now, and we are committed to them. They're a part of our, not just our giving, but hopefully our praying. We just went over crosstalk, all right? And I know it's the same names seemingly every week on that inside front right page there. But have you ever taken time during the week to go through and pray for those names, or at least look at those names and think about the countries where they're going? Do you understand? We do this for a reason, okay? We put these here. These are our, okay. Don't raise your hand, but when is the last time you walked into the Ed building down the first floor there and stopped a moment and looked at one of those boards? See, we put it there for a reason. Hopefully every Sunday morning you walk past them, but when you go to Sunday school, most of the classes are there. Not every, I get that. But there's a reason that we did that. And do you know that those letters get changed every time a new letter comes in? Mrs. Horton, Rachel Horton, it's one of her responsibilities. She changes those letters out every time a new letter comes. Take the old one out, put the new one in. The pictures that are there, the flags. You know what the flags are there for? Representing the country that missionary is going to. We do these things on purpose. It's not just decoration, okay? There's a reason we do this. Why? I want you to get to know this family because they are our family. They're a part of our extension to get the gospel to the world, all right? And so that being said, I want to take just a little bit of the first part of this time to share with you about some of our own missionaries. And I've got a picture here that I'm going to show you, I think, of a few of them. And now, obviously, this is the Williams family. And you say, well, if you're new to our church, you're saying, well, Pastor, they're on our staff. Did you know that just about 4 months ago, they were in England, where they had been for 12 years? And can you not go forward, guys? Can we please stay where? I don't think I touched that button. There we go. Thank you very much. Scott, take your hands off the computer, right? I'm looking at Scott. I see him right up there. The reason that I'm, and Brother Williams, he's up there. Maybe it's Brother Williams. You didn't want to look at that picture of yourself, did you? In fact, we don't either. Can you go to there? Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, go back. I'm holding right here. Can you go back? There we go. It's hard to find good help. There's a reason we put Brother Williams up there behind it where no one can see him, right? This was their last letter that they wrote from the mission field. And not even really from the mission field. They were already here. And I think we're having technical difficulties up there, aren't we? So don't pay attention to them, all right? The first part of the letter says, our final letter. I'm certain that Brother Williams and Mrs. Williams had a lot of emotion as they wrote this letter. But you know, God sometimes does call people to different fields. There was a time when they were called to go to the foreign field. They were called to England, to the UK. They've been in 2 different places. They started in London. I'll never forget, in 2009, we had the privilege, myself and Dr. Earl Jessup, made a trip. We actually made 3 trips to London in that process of helping them to get a church brand new started on the north side of London called Enfield. That's where Justin and Holly had raised their support. And it took about 4 years. Was it 4 years on deputation? It was a long time, wasn't it? England's a tough country, an expensive country, cold culturally and to the gospel, but they felt called there. And our church took a team of people over. We were there for a week, and I had the privilege of preaching all of their Get Acquainted meetings and the place where their church began. And they stayed there and built a great solid work. And then the Lord led them up a little farther north into the country of England to an established church, an existing church. Another missionary was coming back home off of the field, and I won't get into all the story, but God opened up so many doors to allow Brother Justin to begin to pastor that church, and they had their own building. You know, it wasn't like that in the first church plant. You all met in rented facilities, as most missionaries do. The church in Skelmersdale had their own facility, and they got to remodel that facility and make it nice and a place in that city where church folks could come. And obviously 12 years were spent in ministry to the British. And I'll read a part of this letter here. It says, he writes, Skelmersdale Baptist Church is doing so well. The pulpit committee is now working through candidates, so please pray for wisdom and for direction. The church has remodeled some additional areas since we left, and since the lockdowns have eased, have restarted Sunday school and restarted soul winning. And he talks about the people just stepping up and taking great steps of faith. And so, you know, obviously, it was hard to come back to the States emotionally, but through so many reasons, we know that God's opened the door for them to come and for us to get to serve the Lord together. It started 20 years ago in sweet relationships of ministry, and we're so thrilled to have the Williams family to be back with us. I will say this. He mentions about the cultural differences between the UK and the US, and how they are currently trying to navigate all of those differences. And it's more than just, and I tease him about, 2 Corinthians, he says, or 2 Chronicles. That's just how they say it over there. More than just that, there are cultural differences. For instance, Brother Williams and I have talked about even just how to assimilate new members, since that's one of his jobs and responsibilities. And he said, "Preacher, you don't understand." He said, "In England, we were really never able to pressure or push anybody to make decisions. You had to be so very much on the back. You had to let them kind of come to you. Whereas in America, it's just, man, hey, take this next step. Hey, what do you think about discipleship? Hey, what do you, and not pressuring people to do something they don't want to do, but leading them to take good steps. In the UK, he said, you can't do that. So obviously, there are just some things ministry-wise and culturally that they are still adjusting. But thank God for the Williams family, and I wanted to bring you up to date on that. Now, I'm going to go to the next picture, hopefully, and it'll stay on that picture. There we go. Brother Harris mentioned about Brother Stamper. And Bob and Betty Stamper, this church has been supporting for a long, long time. We also actually support their son and daughter-in-law, so second-generation missionaries. But Mrs. Betty Stamper, I wanted to let you know, just passed away on October the 2nd. And so I'm reading here, this is from their mission board, and it said, "It's with deep sorrow we inform you of the passing of Betty Stamper, retired veteran missionary," are you ready for this, "of 47 years. 47 years in Kenya. And of course, her husband, still living, still somewhat retired, but boy, that's a long time to have served the Lord on the foreign field. Amen? And then I want to share something quickly here about a fairly new one of our missionaries. And does anybody know who this is? There we go, the Harris family. Very good. We picked them up last February or March. This is the family, if you'll remember, that Bill and Susan Nickerson went to be in Belize for 5 months while they were home on a quick furlough. And so they're obviously back. And I wanted to share with you, this is their latest prayer letter. And it says they returned back on June the 15th. Talked about their 3 children just returning and coming back home. But here's what I want to share with you. On September 30, all right, so this is just passed. We're now into October. September 30 will mark 3 years since the Grace Baptist Church was officially planted, and our anniversary service will be on October the 3rd. So that was just a couple of Sundays ago also, and his home pastor was coming down, Randy Love, to be with them. And this is a great man in Belize that is a veteran missionary, been there already for a couple of terms, and obviously back we picked them up and added them to our missionary family. All right, I want to catch you up on the Beal family. If you're new to our church, now you don't know who this is, but John and Brittany actually taught at Martinsburg Christian Academy, about 5 years ago or so. And obviously, Brittany is the daughter of Brother and Mrs. Gewen. I'm just trying to put this together for some new folks. And of course, John Beal is from Wildemar, California, and just from a great church there, Dr. Goddard. And what a sweet, sweet couple. They are in Thailand and have been there now for a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And that's their first little one. But I wanted to remind you that Brittany is expecting her second baby. And I know that that obviously is something that our church family would want to rejoice about. And then I want to tell you this, they're actually coming home for a real quick visit between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and they'll actually be here on the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and so we'll actually get to see the Beals. So let's remember them also. I'd like to catch you up here just for a moment on Dr. Gene Burge and his wife Alice. If you remember, Dr. Burge passed away. His service actually was here just a few weeks ago. And that's a really great picture of Gene and Alice. Number one, I want you to pray particularly for Mrs. Burge. They've been in ministry for over 50 years, I think closer to 55. And obviously she has been his helpmeet right along his side, Baptist Missions to Forgotten Peoples. Let me give you just a quick little history of that. Dr. Burge didn't actually start BMFP, but he partnered with a man by the name of Dr. Garland Powell. That maybe is a name that some of you old-timers may know. Dr. Powell was a well-known man in missions circles 40, 50 years ago. And Dr. Powell had kind of gotten things started. Dr. Burge kind of came in 1980 and kind of took it to the next level there. And BMFP was started as a mission board to reach people that no other American mission board had set out to reach. Again, it's in the title, and I think I've got their little logo here, Baptist Missions to, and notice that F and P, Forgotten Peoples. That was really Dr. Burge's heart. Now, it doesn't mean that they wouldn't accept missionaries going to China, okay, or some African nation. But a lot of BMFP missionaries went or are called and are going to very specific people groups, all right? Church planters, for instance, in the inner city of New York City. Children's homes, juvenile delinquent type facilities, teen ranches, to name a few, that I know some of these are missionaries with BMFP. So we want to remember this. Why? Well, Dr. Burge obviously has passed on to heaven, and I want you to remember the new director, Brother Jonathan Lyons. Brother Lyons obviously was here the Sunday after the funeral and preached for us that Sunday evening. He's got a big task at hand, taking over a new board, not new to him necessarily, but the new role. And let's just pray that God can allow him to take it to the next level, and God will use him to help many, many young missionaries that are coming up through the ranks. And then the second thing I want to say to you about this is they have an annual, what they call Mission Possible European Retreat. And they do this every year in Germany. It's coming up November 8 to 13. I know they would request our prayers for this. And this is where missionaries in Europe, and it doesn't have to just be BMFP. That's what I loved about Dr. Burge. He didn't care if you were with him or not, with that board. If you're a fundamental missionary, it could be BIMI, it could be FBMI. I mean, there's a whole variety of different boards. Anybody is welcome. And they'll have upwards of 150 to 175 missionaries and their families that come in for 3 or 4 days. And it is a retreat. It's a time for them to be able to just come, get some refreshment, kind of a conference. There's some preaching and some good singing, but a lot of free time and a lot of meals together. And Dr. Burge's, watch this, Dr. Burge's heart was to do what he could to help missionaries not get discouraged and quit. And a retreat like that can sometimes just do that. Think about this. If you were in a foreign field and you haven't seen your family for 4 years, the babies haven't seen the grandparents, you're all alone in maybe the next fundamental missionary is 200 miles away. You never see them. Could you get discouraged? Oh, yeah, absolutely. So a retreat like this, I think, is vitally important. It was Dr. Burge's heart for many years. So they're continuing to keep that going. That's in November 8 to 13, and I wanted you to remember that and pray for that. All right, BCPM. Does anybody know what those initials stand for? It's a ministry that I know Virginia knows it. You got your hand up. Does anybody other than Mrs. Harris know what BCPM stands for? It's one of our newer ministries. All right, Mrs. Harris, I'll let you answer. Baptist Church Planting Ministries. Dr. Earl Jessup was a dear, dear friend of mine. He's passed on now in the last few years. Dr. Jessup was here in my early stages, maybe 13 or 14, and we got to preach in this pulpit once. I've traveled the world with Dr. Jessup. We've been to multiple mission fields and church planting adventures, and Dr. Jessup has turned over this board to a man by the name of Jeremy Rowland. I was thinking Rowland, something else. Jeremy Rowland. Brother Rowland's actually going to be here in November on a Sunday, just one service, and I want you to meet him. He's never been here, and what a good man. But their whole ministry is about planting churches, not just in the States, but primarily in the States. And I want to just talk to you real quick about what we get to invest in as we support BCPM. Here is a list of the church plants right now, either that they have already just recently gotten started or the list in the next year to year and a half that they are working on. For instance, one of the newer ones here was in Dearborn, Michigan, population of over 100,000. Did you know that Dearborn, Michigan is the Islamic capital of the United States of America? There are more Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan, outside of Detroit than any other city in the nation. And so what a place for a church plant, right? Secondly, a church plant was just finished in Garland, Texas. Garland, Texas has 220,000 people. The most recent one, in fact, I just talked to Jeremy this past week, and they just got done with this, I think last Sunday or the Sunday before, on the eastern shore of Alabama. And this is so neat. I know you can't see this picture here. I didn't have it digital to get up on the screen. But Lighthouse Baptist Church on the eastern shore of Mobile Bay, Alabama, had their grand opening Sunday. Oh, here it is, October 17th. The reproducing church is Lighthouse Baptist, same name. And you know who the reproducing pastor is? In Theodore, Alabama, with Pastor Randy Toole. So this is a father who has a church in Alabama that is reproducing with his son being a new pastor in Mobile, Alabama. And Andrew is his name, Andrew Toole. And on their opening Sunday, they had 158 on their first Sunday, and 120 of those were from the community. So that wasn't just a lot of church people coming in. That was community people coming in. And I think he said 15,000 John and Romans had been passed out. And just an awesome, awesome place or ministry that I wanted you to be reminded about that we get to support. And then this is my father, Gary Bain. And we support my dad. My dad is semi-retired, but I want to read his last letter here. I love this. He said, just received your support check today with much thanks for helping me stay behind the walls of the Tomoka State Prison in Daytona Beach, Florida. Now, my dad is 74 years of age. He's pastored for over 40 years. The last 7 or 8 years, somewhat retired, but he travels about 5 days a week, 20 miles into Daytona Beach, and he is there all day long in Tomoka State Prison. He said our warden had to move because of health issues. His replacement was then hired, got COVID, and tragically died. A new one is here now. My senior chaplain is retiring the end of October, and our new man is here to be trained. We have a new head of security coming on board soon. And my dad told me this recently, many correctional officers are retiring at the end of this year. He said there's just this huge turnover. COVID has caused a lot of people just to want to get out of these prisons. And so they're taking either early retirement or just getting out. And he said it is a nightmare behind those walls. That's what he told me. And of course, my dad's been there now 6, 7 years, so he's known as a volunteer chaplain. But Dad disciples new converts. He preaches the chapel programs multiple times through the week. And then also he teaches in his own local church, which is Bible Baptist in DeLand. He teaches in the DeLand School of the Bible. He's teaching this semester and fills in the pulpit for when his pastor is out of town. And then, as only my dad could say, he said, how do we spell retired? He said, I go to bed tired, I wake up tired, so I guess I'm re-tired. So there we go. My dad's been corny for a long, long time. So thank you for praying for my father, and thank you for supporting him in his work there in the prison. Talking about missionaries who've been on the field for a long, long time. Our church has supported this family for a long time. Does anybody want to stab at who this is? At least a last name. Oh yeah, it's up there, isn't it? Charles and Lourdes Holmes. And just their latest letter, and that's a sweet picture there. They are celebrating, are you ready? 54 years in Thailand. 54 years. And what a sweet, sweet family. And just about their work and their orphanage and the churches they've started and all of that. Isn't that awesome? They sent some prayer cards. Let me just tell you, I've got one right here. I put the stack on the welcome desk. If you like prayer cards, you'd like to go by and get one, they sent this stack with their latest letter, and I thought this would be a good time for me to talk to you about it. Well, I want to talk to you about our conference, all right? The theme, obviously, is Hispanic, and we'll talk a little bit about that on Thursday night and why we've chosen this theme. All 6 missionaries that are coming to be with us are all ministering in Hispanic countries. Many of them are Hispanic themselves. Our keynote speaker, for instance, grew up in El Salvador and came to the States, got his Bible college training, and for the last 25 years has what sounds like weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth, doesn't it? I'm not sure what's happening up in the nurseries there. All the moms right now are saying, is that my baby's cry? And some of the dads are saying, just let them cry. Just let them cry, right? We're going to focus on the Hispanic world. We're going to talk about the need of, in fact, one of our missionaries is actually a man stationed in the U.S., but his main ministry is helping U.S. churches get Spanish work started. Well, that's a need, is it not? I mean, just like what Brother Damien Segura does for us. Preaching in Spanish and teaching a Sunday school class in the Spanish language. And so some of these are on deputation to go to the foreign field. Some of these are veteran missionaries that are here just to report. And I don't believe that any of them have been here. And so you're going to get to meet some very, very special people. So I've put together a little, and I don't even want to call it a Bible study because it's not really a Bible study. and I've never given this before, all right? These are not things that I've just used elsewhere. It's something that I want to teach a little bit, and there's no way I'll get through all of it. I've got way too many screens for me to teach through tonight. But maybe this in ensuing times as we think about a missions conference. Why do we have a missions conference? What's the purpose of it? You know, I say this often. There's a purpose in everything that we do here. There's a reason behind it or a philosophy behind it. It's not because, well, we've just always done it. Because this church hasn't always had missions conferences, all right? In fact, really prior to Pastor Don's era, I don't know that this church ever had an annual conference. And really not until 1992 did our church really, under Pastor Don's leadership, begin what we call a faith promise commitment giving. And you'll see some of that in the bulletin on Sunday the 31st there. And you'll see when Faith Promise started in 1992, the giving just went exponentially higher. So there is a reason that we do Faith Promise, and it is an exercise of faith. It is faith giving. Look this way, please. Let me do a little teaching. I do not recommend, I do not believe it's biblical that you take your tithe money and give it to missionaries. You're misunderstanding the biblical concept of what the tithe is used for and what we do in what we call extra giving or giving by faith over and above. Now, does not the Bible say tithes and offerings? So that concept is a biblical concept. The tithe, that belongs to the local church. That's what allows our ministry to function, and our ministry, what we might call our local ministry, our Jerusalem. So we use faith giving, offering giving to fund our missions program. We keep the money separated, all right? There are separate funds. When you give and you mark on that little sheet where it says Faith Promise, that doesn't go into the general fund budget, okay? We don't spend that for the light bill here or to run this ministry. Those monies are designated for the gospel getting to the world, all right? Those 96 missionaries that we support every single month, different projects. I love, and I'm kind of running a rabbit trail here, but I love that so we've had surplus giving in missions. Sometimes we're able to send $1,000 to one missionary, $5,000. There's a building program. He's trying to buy a jeepney, maybe in the Philippines, and we can send a couple $1,000s here. There's an orphanage here. There's John and Romans that are needed here. We're able to help mission projects with chunks of money. Over and above what our monthly supported giving is. So what's the purpose of a missions conference? Well, I'm just going to say, number one, and it's not my first screen, and unashamedly, and I want everybody to listen to me, unashamedly, I'm going to ask you for money for 4 days. I'm going to ask you to make a commitment. You're going to get this little card in that bulletin on Sunday morning, and I'm going to ask you to, by faith, pray about what can you do over and above your 10th. What can God give? Here's the key, give through you. Now, here's what I've noticed over the years. My wife and I have been giving to Faith Promise Mission since 1990. That's when we started as a married couple. 31 years. We've seen it. I track it every single year. I know what we give in a year's time, and then I track how God gives it back to me. God always gives me back more than I give during that year. He did it again this year. I just did the math. So can God give to you? Yes. But does He want to give through you? Yes. Exercise a little faith. What can you do? What can your family do? What can your children do? I'll never forget my daughters, when they were teenagers, they started filling out their own card. And I think I probably told this story here before, but Caitlin one year filled out, she was going to give $11 a month. Her allowance was only $10 a month. And she said, I want to give $11 a month. I want God to give me back in some form or fashion what my allowance is plus $1. And she watched God do that. It was amazing at the end of that year. And to watch our kids' faith grow. You can't put a price tag on that. All right? So if you've not been involved in Faith Promise Giving, please listen to the preaching, the teaching, the encouragement. So it's not only about money, all right? But there is a purpose in we're trying to see what can we do for missions for the next 12 months. All right, now let me get actually to what I'm actually going to say. There are 4 areas that I want to talk about. And again, we're not going to get to all of them tonight, but I've broken it down into 4 areas of who benefits from having a conference. Number 1, the church benefits, all right? We're also then going to talk about how does the missionary benefit, how does the church member, how do you benefit, and then how does the pastor benefit, all right? So we're just going to kind of start walking through these, and we'll just see how far we get with the time allowed. Let's read the first one that I have up there. Ready? What's the first purpose? Number 1, to allow the church to see the need of fulfilling the Great Commission worldwide. I want you to get a world view. We often call it a biblical world view. That's why, watch, be very careful now here, but that's why I love Martinsburg Christian Academy versus a public school. Public school does not have a biblical worldview. And so everything they teach is from a secular worldview, right? It's not about God, it's not about church, it's not about anything moral or right. I want our church to have a biblical worldview with missions. So is missions biblical? Well, sure it is. I mean, we could go to Matthew 28, right? 19 and 20. Go ye into all the world. Well, all the world. Does all the world mean all the world? Sure it does. Mark 16:15 says similarly. The book of Luke and the ending of John. And then you get to Acts chapter 1 and verse number 8. Ye shall receive power and you shall become witnesses. Where? In Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, and to the... I mean, if there was one missions verse, Acts 1:8 would be it. There's multiple missions verses, right? But Acts 1:8 really gives 4 steps. Jerusalem, that's your own backyard. Judea, a little larger area. Samaria. Remember, the Jews didn't get along with the Samaritans. Should we be sending missionaries to people who don't even like us? Sure. How about Islamic countries? Do they need missionaries? Absolutely. So it's not just going to the easy places. And thank God there are men that are called to the hard places. See, the worldwide commission that we have been given, and let's be honest. Can we be honest? Can I be honest? Can you be honest with yourself? We're not the soul winners that we need to be. We don't have the heart for souls like we need to have. Not the heart that God wants us to have. And so missions conference helps us to kind of say, okay, wow, there's a big world out there. And there's a lot of people lost and dying without Christ. I heard Dr. Jack Trieber say just recently that he read somewhere, their missions week, I think was this past week, we're nearing almost to that 8 billion population in the world mark. 8 billion people. I can't even understand numbers like that, can you? And then you start hearing statistics about how many countries of the world don't have a gospel witness, don't have, how many people groups, for instance, don't have a Bible in their heart tongue, in their language. How many of those billions of people, they don't know what we know. And Missions Conference helps us to kind of have a little reset button pushed. That we need to see the need of fulfilling what we often call the Great Commission. Can I say the Great Commission has sometimes become the Great Omission? That we just don't share the gospel ever with anybody. Not even in our own backyard, let alone on the mission field. So that's one reset button every year that I think is important. And along those lines, to set aside time to talk about the thing closest to the heart of God, which is soul winning. And I think we all would agree with that here at Shenandoah. Letter C, to convict us of our responsibility. I love that word, responsibility. Let's start with the word convict first. Are you convicted, or should we be convicted as we hear preaching about things that we're not doing? Sure. So as we hear preaching about getting the gospel to the world, and maybe you're not a part of that. Maybe you're not investing in that. Maybe you don't really care about whether folks in India hear about the gospel or not. We should be convicted about that. We should have soft hearts. Can I ask you, next week, would you come with a soft heart? Okay, number one, can I just ask you to come? Let's start with just coming. Do you know, it's sad, sometimes missions conferences, weeknights are the lowest attended services of the year. It's sad. Because there are people that say, I don't want to hear that stuff. Now, they may never would say that, but that's by their absence, that's what they're saying. I don't want to be convicted. That's why some Christians don't come to church. They don't want to be convicted. They don't want God's word to ever show them something that they need to be doing or not doing. So to convict us, but I love that last word of our responsibility. Does the Bible say, to whom much is given, much shall be required? Can I ask you a question? Have we been given much in America? Okay, financially, have we been given much financially? There's nobody in this room that is too poor to give something to missions. And it's not a dollar amount, and I don't know who gives what. When we ask you to fill these cards out, I don't want your name on it. There's no place for your name. There's a place for a dollar amount, weekly or monthly, and it just, all this does is helps us to add up. This is what we feel like we can do for the year, so we can know if we can take on new missionaries. This is not between me and you. This is between you and the Lord. But those that give $0 to missions, I don't understand how you live with yourself. I'm talking to the Wednesday night crowd here. We do have a responsibility because we've been given so much. So monetarily, have we been given so much of the gospel? Of the gospel, of church. I know we don't live in the Bible Belt, but you just go a few states south, what is called there's a Baptist church. Now, they may not be just like us, but they preach the gospel. They believe in salvation by grace. It's on every corner. You may go to a nation where there's one, what we would consider to be a fundamental soul-winning, Bible-believing missionary in the whole country, at least from what we know. That's sad, isn't it? So do we have a responsibility to try to do our part to get the gospel to the regions beyond? The next one, I want to actually ask you to go to Philippians chapter number 4. All right? We're talking about the purpose to the church. And I told you this was not necessarily a Bible study, but I love this little passage, Philippians chapter number 4. All right, here's the point while you're turning there. The fourth purpose of a missions conference, to challenge God's people to give financially through the local church. So I wanted to prove this here biblically. I want you to see that the New Testament churches, these churches in Asia Minor that Paul was on his missionary journeys to, and obviously writing these epistles back to. Philippians is one of the greatest churches in the New Testament. And just one of the churches that there was nothing negative said to them or about them. All right, you have Philippians chapter number 4, right? And I want you to look at verse number 15. And Paul is writing back to them now, and he says, "Now ye Philippians know also that in the beginning of the gospel, when I departed from Macedonia," all right, let's just stop right there. How do you remember what we often sing about the Macedonian call? Remember he saw that vision? He saw a man from Macedonia saying what? Come over and help us. Remember that? That was a part of that missionary journey. It's why Paul was so propelled to get the gospel. All right, so he says, when I departed from Macedonia, now watch the next phrase, no church communicated with me as concerning, would you read the next three words, giving and receiving, but ye only. He says, watch, of all of the churches I was in, you communicated the most with me in what area? Financial giving. The giving and receiving. Now we could go to 1 Corinthians chapter 6. I won't take time to do that. We could go to 2 Corinthians chapter number 8 and chapter number 9, where Paul was talking to these churches about, look, I want you to give so that we can go and help these churches in Macedonia. The church in Jerusalem often was the largest church, and so they were going to give so that other needs could be met. He said, look, there's this New Testament example of giving, and I want you to look back at verse 15 again. He talks about in the beginnings of the gospel. So I want you to notice that giving and receiving is connected with the gospel in verse 15. Now everybody look this way. Let me logic with you a minute. Is it good, for instance, would it be commendable for us to give money to build a building, an orphanage maybe on the foreign field? Absolutely. That's a good purpose for spending some missions money. Here's where I'm going with this, should we sometimes even be involved in what we might call humanitarian projects, helping people, buying food, buying clothing? Would those be good things to do? Yes or no? Those would be good. But that's only one small part of missions. Watch. I think that should be one element, but to not neglect the main element, which is giving so they can hear the gospel. Now, wait a minute. If we build an orphanage and there's 50 children that get cared for day in and day out and fed and clothed and educated, and then a missionary is going to preach the gospel to them, is that all the same ball? Sure it is. It's a part of the whole process. My point is that Paul is relating money to getting the gospel to the regions beyond. Let's keep reading. Look at verse 16. He says, for even in Thessalonica ye sent once and again. He said, you didn't just give once, you gave multiple times unto my necessity. All right, so gifts were sent to Paul, just like we send gifts to missionaries. We send monthly support for their needs and for their family, and to clothe them and to feed them and to allow them to have a place to live. And do you see, that's a biblical model. Paul received gifts from the churches. He didn't say, hey, don't give. Why? Because he was on a mission. So it's a biblical concept to give for those who are willing to go, what we would say to the mission field. Verse number 17, he says, not because I desire a gift. He said, look, this isn't just I'm trying to get money for you to give it to me, but I desire, I love this, watch this, church, but I desire fruit that may abound to your account. What does that mean? Watch. So when we send a physical monetary gift to a missionary and that missionary puts it into the ministry, people are saved on the foreign field. Watch this. Do we get some dividend from our investment? Fruit that abounds to your account. That's what he's saying. You may never go to the foreign field, but if you give money for someone to go to the foreign field, guess what? The folks that get saved there, you get a little bit of a value to that. Do you see that? That's a biblical concept. Fruit that may abound to your account. And then he wraps it up, and I don't want to stop before I read verse 19. But I have all and abound. I am full. Paul says, look, God's taken really good care of me. I have been full, having received of Epaphroditus the things that were sent from you, the odor, would you read with me? The odor of a sweet smell, a sacrifice acceptable, well-pleasing to God. Do you know that gift you give, that monetary gift, that faith promise dollar, that investment smells really good to the Lord? He uses the word sacrifice. It's a sacrifice acceptable. It's well-pleasing to the Lord. It pleases God when we give for the gospel to go to the places where it has not yet gone. And then that great verse in verse 19, but my God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. Can I poke at you for just a minute? Don't claim the promise of verse 19 if you haven't given like verses 15 through 18 tell you to. It's attached. The blessing in 19, because we quote verse 19, well, God's going to just take care of all of my need. And he's a good God, and he's a very gracious, beneficent God. Yes, he is. Better to us than we deserve. But you really want to claim verse 19? It's attached to the giving to get the gospel to the world. And you can't outgive God. I promise you, you cannot outgive. Some of you need to just take God at his word and say, this year, I'm going to do what I haven't done before. I'm going to step out on faith and either give something where I've given nothing, or I'm going to increase it just a little bit because I'm going to put God on I don't say on trial, but doesn't Malachi 3 say, prove me? Prove me herewith. And will I not open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing that you cannot receive it? I believe that happens as a church. I believe that's why we've weathered COVID just fine. You know why? Because even during COVID, let me think here, in the last 2 years, we have picked up 17 new missionaries. We haven't gone less on missions giving. We've increased our missions giving. You think God maybe is God going to provide all of our needs? Absolutely He is. That's a great promise. That's a great promise to end on, isn't it? Let's stand together, please. You see, again, it's not just about money. Please don't misunderstand. It's so much more than that, but money is an element of what the conference is going to be, and to think about how we can give so that the gospel can go to the world. Just standing there quietly in your place, and not even an invitation tonight, I just want you to think about, I'm going to poke at you a minute. What did you give last year? Some of you would have to honestly say, I gave $0 to missions. There are probably some of you that don't even tithe. I mean, you haven't even started at the basics. And then you expect the blessings of God financially when you have not met God's obligations. I want the blessings of the Lord on our church. And that starts at the individual. And yes, it's between you and the Lord. It's not between you and me. But oh, how important is it for us to see the need of the world. And God has been so good and so bountiful to us in the United States. All of us have way more than 99% of the world's population. We're rich compared to 99% of the world. Now, you may not think you're rich according to world standards or American standards, but I think we can take something and send it for the gospel to be given to someone who's never heard. Lord, I pray that tonight I will not have been misunderstood or misconstrued, or for some to think that it's just about money. Money is just one element, really, to the sensitivity that we have and the submissiveness that we have to our God. Lord, tithing and giving offerings, that's your plan. It's your command. And Lord, we can fight with it all we want. We can argue over it and take our stand. But Lord, I've proven you over and over and over and over and over and over again. And Lord, I thank you for the fruit that will abound to our account as a church. Lord, as we're about to pass over the $4 million mark that this church has given to missions, we thank you for that. Lord, I know other churches give far more. But Lord, I pray you'd help us to do what we can do. Support the missionaries you've given to us. To pray for these men and women and families to be spread all over this globe, preaching and teaching the salvation through Jesus Christ. Loving people and discipling them, and in their own language, allowing them to know what we know and to grow how we've grown. Lord, it even does my heart good to see and hear some missionaries that talk about how they lead their people to give to missions as well. From their penury, out of their poverty. So Lord, I pray you'd help us to do our part, to not have a bad attitude or a bad spirit. But Lord, I pray that our church would have all of the blessings that you want to give to us, because we choose to give to what is important to you. So Father, bless our conference next week. Lord, it's going to be so good to meet all of these 6 families and hear their stories and see their videos and hear their preaching. And Lord, just to be around and rub shoulders with God's men. Lord, please bless them and help them to bless us. May it be a beneficial communication for those 4 days, I pray. We dedicate it now to you, and we thank you for it. Bless this time now that we've had to kind of share about missions here at SBBC. We thank you for this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, please go get your children. Thank you so much. Remember about the gift cards and all the things that we've announced there. God bless you, and we'll see you on Sunday.